Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, and finally some Crimson Desert talk. Crimson Desert's been on our radar for years now. It was first thought to be, say, the next Black Desert, a continuation of the MMO concept that they started with but maybe evolved. In fact, it started as an official prequel to Black Desert, hence the name. But now it's become something different, as they've revealed over time to us, with actually what is a single player core in a massive open world. This has seemingly let them go a bit crazy with certain concepts like the combat and the weighty, that was already super flashy and fun in Black Desert. But now with all this physical contact with the terrain, the environment around you, and the enemies you're fighting with the physics, it's really cool. So the combat obviously looks incredible. And the world looks like a fun version of fantasy with magic and mechanics to it. The story itself is promising, the characters look interesting. So this video, I wanted to bring you up to speed, cover some of the recent reveals in a recent interview, and just sort of refresh myself as well on where the game is at. So let's begin. The first thing to know is that it's finally releasing soon. It drops on March 19th, so that's less than 2 months to go. I believe I first heard about the game from the Game Awards back in 2020, so it's been over 6 years since that. Anyway, it is releasing on current gen consoles and PC. It's an action adventure, yet obviously now a single player game. The setting and world, yes, is classic medieval fantasy, but there's a lot of craziness here. A lot of conflicts going on and strange occurrences. There's magic and mechanics here, as well as more on the ground stuff with hamlets, peasants to lords and so on. We're following the perspective of the Greymanes though, a band of seeming mercenaries, with us playing a lot of the game as Cliff. And while the combat's going to be a heavy draw and focus, I'm hoping the story and the characters especially will steal some of the show. We know the world's going to be massive, and in a recent interview it was said to be twice as large as Skyrim. So obviously I want that to be fun to engage with, more than just like an open world with not a lot in it, as we'll discuss. But from the trailers and reveals so far, I will say the characters seem like they're going to draw you in. I hope they're good. So for some story context, we're going to start pretty split. The Greymanes were a respectable force, but that's not the case anymore. A rival faction known as the Black Bears have just sort of assaulted the Greymanes in an ambush and killed most of its members. A few of the survivors, including the main character Cliff, get away from that encounter, so with just a few that remain, it's about reconnecting that family. So Cliff's goal is to find his surviving friends, rebuild the Greymanes, and obviously get revenge. Now, a while back we saw this concept of swapping between different Greymanes and different stories and perspectives. We have also now seen in a recent trailer some little gameplay clips of other characters, but the majority still seems to be Cliff, so we'll see how that turns out. And there's lots of stuff to do with Cliff, with this whole destiny and history taking main stage, maybe beyond this revenge storyline. It's still in the Black Desert universe, but how will it connect compared to like a prequel? We'll have to find out. Let's talk about a lot of the gameplay stuff that looks awesome, starting with the big one, the combat. As you dive in, it is a familiar 3D space that reminded me a little bit of Witcher 3 and that kind of environment. With melee attacks and combos, you flow between short attacks or longer combos, but with the weight system they have, you kind of generate momentum and unleash it, bouncing between targets even when surrounded. There's a sort of quick wheel you can pull out to swap what you're using quickly, such as weapons and element of choice, and a stamina wheel like very much Breath of the Wild that layers around itself. You've got aerial movement where you're leaping up in the middle of combat or entering combat from big slam downs from the air, bouncing off terrain or even walls. There's grappling and physical interactions, reminding me of the climbing of enemies in Dragon's Dogma, but with smaller enemies, it's more physical, deeper grappling and weight systems to fling people. They'll bounce off walls and terrain and so on, and they'll use it against you too. Interestingly, I've seen quick time events, which are basically, your short cinematic moment in the middle of a fight where you have to press the right input suddenly. Maybe with special enemies that'll happen here and there. We've seen a variety of weapons, but there's more to see from this. But initially I've seen stuff like swords and shields, spears, halberds, bows, daggers, two-handed weapons, even unarmed. And there's the element side of things too, where we're enhancing our attacks with fire, lightning and ice. And I've seen a lot of the use of this nature symbol, so maybe that's earth. These seem to affect the enemies and the terrain. So you might set something on fire, intentionally or accidentally. You might freeze the water and make platforms, or use it to podium boost yourself up. Lightning can affect things that conducts it. So a lot of weapon and attack infusions rather than spellcast style, but I have seen more spellcast being used in general movement. So there's definitely special powers and tools here. We see this kind of cloak that can glide and dash in the air. and a grapple that's insane where you're attaching to all kinds of terrain, flinging yourself around, whether you're going to slam down or move just around the terrain. I've seen glimpses of the names like the Axiom Force, Force Palm, and I've also seen other magical stuff like special summons tied to equipment, as we'll cover with the boss fight. But yes, because a lot of the terrain and structures are breakable, there's lots of ways to engage with it. So we see, say, this player climb a wall to some siege weaponry and then use a cannon, load it, aim it and fire at a structure and bring that down. But obviously a big part of the combat is going to be the boss fights, which look crazy. There's a lot of unique designs they've shown us, different approaches to beat them, like literally picking up a pillar and smashing an enemy with it, or the living elemental rocks you climb up the back of, larger foes that actually have surprising attack weight and speed, where they leap off walls to sort of crash down onto you, and bigger, slower enemies that you will climb in a very Dragon's Dogma style. There's familiar knights with one-on-one combat or onslaughts of enemies. And in IGN's recent gameplay section, you face this large knight called Fortain the Cursed Knight, and he has these kind of spectral ghost summons that double his attacks or use different attacks at the same time for an off angle. As a heavier enemy himself, he can bowl through you, trade blows with you. He's got basic charges and combos, and he uses those spectral summons in a sort of super as he fills this red bar and does this super combo while he hides behind a shield and has the specters attack you in different ways. I also noticed in the gameplay, it seems like he's vulnerable to lightning element, since you know his armor should conduct it. But when he was defeated, his own Spectre finishes him off, and then when you pick up his shield and sword, the Spectre Knight sword and shield, different uses of those items now summon that same Spectre for you. So rather than like investing in summoning, it's when you're using that specific equipment. The little bit of gameplay we've seen from other characters would be, say, the weighty Berserker or the more agile and precise Rogue type. So while Cliff is more of a balanced, there will be more of a hard focus for these other characters should we be able to play them in normal gameplay. Progression systems do exist as well, we've only had mention of glimpses of it. They've said that a skill trees part of the game are actually multiple. We've seen stats including reputation, attack speed, movement speed, crit chance, battery power. So maybe we'll improve these for the equipment, upgrades, or maybe the skill trees and other progression systems. But we know there's a focus for these progressions for melee stuff, range stuff, magic stuff, defense aspects, and all without a generic XP system, more from your actual items and unlocks, which again I'll mention in the interview. The world itself then is called Pywell, a massive open world with familiar, weather, day and night cycles. It's an open world, right? What's in it actually matters if I'm going to be interested. So as we've seen quite a lot, the world is very populated in different levels. So in a populated town, you've got tons of people, but in a quiet hamlet, it might be a lot more subtle. People living their own lives, doing their own thing, having their own conversations, which may play into the quest you're doing. Regions are affected by it though. So in terms of environment, there might be like vast green plains, dry deserts, mountains and icy regions. You've got ruins and shrines and other landmarks. But importantly, factions within that have their own preferences for magic and mechanics and how that intertwines or how that makes them hate each other. In terms of traversal, we've got loads of options, walking and running on the ground, using mounts like horses or wolves, bears and raptors. We even see flying on a dragon at one point. We've seen combat from the back of these creatures too. Like I said though, there's a machine aspect to the game. Like we see this mech that they're controlling that's got cannons and machine guns and flight and EMP bursts. It's insane that it fits into this world. So yes, there's a surprising machine and mechanical aspect to the game. In one little clip in a trailer, we see a mechanical dragon. So yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, other stuff that's familiar, climbing along cliffs and walls, gliding in the sky, there's that grapple to swing around, the swimming and sailing on boats, lots of travel options. And through that journey, to survive, you'll need to gather resources, craft and hunt. There's also this other realm, as it's called, the Abyss. It's like up in the air where it's very otherworldly and mysterious. And there you've got magical puzzles and movement challenges. It's very clearly Zelda inspired. Like even we have a tool that pulls doors open in the exact same way. You might be interested to hear about like life skills and that kind of thing, since that's a major aspect of course with Black Desert as an MMO. We've seen aspects of this like fishing, woodcutting, cooking, hunting and crafting, but I do think there's a lot more to see. I just don't think it's going to be as crazy as Black Desert. Though there are other interesting systems like a wanted system, so don't do too much crime I guess, bounties for you to hunt people and bring them in, lots of fun interactions with NPCs, creatures, minigames and more. So there's a lot to look at there, a lot of promise, but we really just want to get our hands on it, and we know that's coming up in March. Speaking of which, let's now cover that recent interview with Will Powers. So in that interview, there was quite a lot talked about, but just a few things I want to mention. The size of the game. From the many demos they've shown so far, they've been very careful, little bits of locations, so there's a lot we haven't seen. In terms of scale, again, they claim that it's twice as large as Skyrim's map, and in fact bigger than, say, Red Dead Redemption 2 as another example. But they went on to say that size isn't like the main point, which is great to hear because I don't want another Starfield where there's just nothing in the open world. They want it to be dense and purpose to the areas you're in. As far as non-combat stuff, interacting with the world comes in many forms, like we saw, gathering resources through hunting, woodcutting, fishing and so on, but turning that into a purpose, whether that's crafting items, tools and more. But this aspect of the game has its own progression systems, like we'd hope in regards to life skills. So you might start basic, with tools and physical methods, mining a stone or chopping a tree with an axe. But new options will spring up as you get clever with it and use your different tools, or just get access to new ways to do this kind of stuff. On that note, there's a lot of environment destruction. They said that not everything will be breakable, but a lot will be. If it can be broken, it's because they kind of had a purpose for that. So with elements affecting terrain, like burning wood and freezing water, that should be a thing you engage with the environment. So instead of sneaking into a camp, you might burn it down or burn down the wall or something. Though stealth does exist, enemies will have visuals to let you know their awareness. They've got obvious versions of like passive nature. They're suspicious in investigating, or they're fully alert. And based on how you progress, you might lean into stealth and unlock like new approaches. And as we've seen, one character should be better at that. But you can happily charge into fights every time, do a mix, you're not forced into any playstyle. Again, we know there's different kinds of progression. What they said in this interview was that there's not going to be an XP bar, but you'll build up through various means. So yes, skill trees and item unlocks. A lot of the abilities come from combat, exploration and questing specifically. Highlighted progressions, like we said, were melee, ranged magic and defensive options, and they plan to introduce all the systems and options slowly. So a lot of the demos we've seen, they have like half the stuff unlocked. Obviously we're going to start very humble initially, and with the many options and systems in place, it'll let you grow into that so you can actually use it effectively. One interesting question was about the social or cultural structure of the game. They talked about how the world is cut up into regions and factions and yeah, the cultures within that. And they have different values and goals. So in some locations, technology will not be accepted at all, while others will love it. So naturally, these factions will oppose one another and have conflict. And maybe you'll want to pay attention to what's accepted and where and what you've got on you. But they really emphasized the whole sandbox world. You'll be given problems and it's up to you how to tackle them. Aspects of the story and world will be obvious with quest markers and direction, but a lot will be subtler, like overhearing conversations, learning from your interactions. You'll be rewarded for paying attention. And one of the interesting things here is that they actually acknowledge it in this interview. Comparing the world and game at large, most to Zelda Breath of the Wild, more than comparisons they've had to like Souls-like games. We do see systems and mechanics that are very familiar to Breath of the Wild, obviously. But they said that there's a lot going on here, there's a lot of choice, and maybe there isn't like a perfect one-for-one comparison, and that's for the best. They want to create something unique. But obviously they've been inspired by a lot of different systems in current open world games. So yeah, that's been our refresher look at where we are with Crimson Desert. Obviously we're really excited about it, and we'll be covering it here on the channel heavily. So look forward to March. But until then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.